my name is Emery Martinez.
I'm Mr. Brown.
All right, and I'll be asking him a couple questions for the interview. And again, in accordance to Bender's social cognitive theory, which states that individuals develop skills and behaviors through observation, what behaviors have you developed through observation of your family and friends that have impacted how you manage and navigate relationships in adulthood?
These questions are crazy. Okay, I have one for sure. And this is pretty important to me. I grew up I've never been the biggest fan of gender roles. I mean, I think for a variety of reasons they're toxic. And for me, I never had a consistent male role model in my life. So I think as a man, I think I would still I would not classify myself as the stereotypical masculine man, which I'm okay with. And I think maybe a large part of that is because just I grew up raised by my mother, my grandmother. I've just always existed in spaces with women. And I think ultimately what is feminine behavior, quote unquote, right, has really kind of been, a lot of the way I behave and the way I think and the way I see the world.
All right, perfect. And finally, what have you found that led you to be most successful in relationships in adulthood?
Oh my gosh. Communication. For sure. Communication by far. And it's still something I'm working out as I'm 25 years old. You wanna, I think and not even in the sense of being honest, but that is a big part of it, is that understanding your emotions, communicating those fairly and honestly to the people around you that you care about. That's definitely, I think, number one. I feel communication, you can't have a successful relationship without openly communicating with the people around you. And I think that's the same case even as a teacher with my students. I try to be communicative with my students, my colleagues, my friends, my family, things like that. That's super important.
Perfect. You guys heard it here first. Communication is key. Hello, my name is Emery Martinez.
I'm Miss Medina.
I'll be interviewing Ms. Medina today. In my research, the authors argue that in accordance to Erickson's theory of psychosocial development, identity versus role confusion, it is vital to build a sense of self before having a successful relationship. Do you find that to be true in yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that resonates so much to me right now too. I think what I'm learning now is if you really don't know yourself, you struggle with knowing how to cope with really hard things that you're going through in life. I've noticed that with myself. I would have to say that since I was 15, I don't think I was able to fully get to know myself and all the aspects I wish I could, and I feel I'm barely doing that now. But I think at times I place a lot of I'm really hard on myself because of it, because I think back on the what ifs and the I should have, but I'm still young, but I'm in that age where I wish I was in a place where I knew better and I didn't make the mistakes that I think, I should have done when I was getting to know myself.
Makes sense. And thank you for the answer. And finally, what have you found has led you to be most successful in relationships in adulthood, whether that's romantic or even platonic?
Well, for sure communication, but I think something that helps with relationships is being open to hearing or validating the other person's feelings. Because it's no one really knows what someone's going through. So at times, people's response isn't really what they want to respond to you, but it's rather what they're holding in and what they're going through. So I think that's just something that most people should maybe consider is what is this person going through to be reacting this way when it's something that's maybe not a big deal to you?
That's amazing here. You heard it here first, folks. Pay attention to what everyone's saying. Sometimes it's never really that deep, and sometimes it really is that deep. Thank you for listening. My name is Emery Martinez.
I'm Joseph Garden.
And my project today is on how to manage relationships in adulthood, and I will be interviewing Garden. Okay, so first question is, in my research, I found that the way our parents interact with us at a young age affect how we give and accept love. Do you find that to be true in yourself?
For sure. I think that's the start of, relationship building. We know that trauma and things like that from our childhood impact our relationships and the way we view the world. And so I think the first part of building relationships as an adult and getting older is learning to unpack those traumas and how they might impact your trust or understanding of another person. For example, my mom's a quite intense person, so little things would set her off. So I learned to kind of walk on eggshells a lot. And so it took me a long time in relationships to learn to unpack that I can trust people, that I don't have to like be so afraid to just be myself around other people. Perfect. In my research, the authors argued that in accordance to Erickson's theory of psychosocial development, identity versus role confusion, it is vital to build a sense of self for having a successful relationship. Do you find that to be evident in yourself? I do agree with that as well. There's a famous quote from Ruth Paul, who's a drag queen, who says, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love someone else? And it's completely true. If you can't be okay with you and know who you are and know your function, it's really difficult to be in a relationship with someone else, because most likely, on some level, you're going to be using that person to fulfill a need that you have not been able to meet with yourself. So once you learn to kind of who you are and love yourself and expect and work on what you need to work on, and you're aware of who you are, it's way easier to engage in authentic, real relationships with people, because I'm not holding those people to standards or things that are meant to fulfill needs or voids in my own life. Perfect. All right. And again, in accordance to Bandura's social cognitive theory, which states individuals develop skills and behaviors through observation, what behaviors that you have developed through observation of your family and friends have an impact on you and how you manage and navigate relationships in adulthood? Could you repeat that question again? I was long. In accordance to Bandura's social cognitive theory, which states that individuals develop skills and behaviors through observation, what behaviors have you developed through observation of your family and friends have had an impact on how you manage and navigate relationships in adulthood? Well, I think we often have like role models and people we see engage with relationships, and they impact us. Again, I think for me, a lot of the things I observed from my family were negatives that I had to learn to unpack. The way they kind of deal with each other, gossiping, kind of being short or quick, not talking to people in a loving way, or actually more like talking at people versus talking with people. So learning to unpack that and actually have conversations with people. Also with, friends, you start to learn like their talking patterns and what they might need in order to communicate. It's not my job to give them advice or tell them what to fix about themselves, but I can learn to communicate with them based on their behavioral sort of actions. So yeah, I do agree in the sense with Bandura that, we model our behaviors off of other people. I think as you get older and you become more self-assured, that's less. You switch into a role where you're more focused on yourself. But I definitely think in younger age, especially teenage, going into early 20s, you are modeling relationships. A lot of what you see in TV and movies of adults around you, successfully and stuff. Yeah, successful relationships that you see are what you deem as a successful relationship.
All right, my name is Emery Martinez.
And I'm Lori Faria.
And in my research, the authors argued that in accordance to Erickson's theory of psychosocial development, identity versus role confusion, it is vital to build a sense of self before having a successful relationship. Do you find that to be true in yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Right out of high school, I got married. And I don't think I knew who I was. And I think I just did it for security reasons. And because I didn't know who I was or have a sense of self, I accepted treatment that I shouldn't have accepted. He was abusive. And once I left him and just figured out who I was and accepted myself, then I was able to love and be loved as I should be.
That's amazing to hear. And in accordance to Bandura's social cognitive theory, which states that individuals develop skills and behaviors through observation, what behaviors have you developed through observation of your friends and family that have had an impact on how you manage and navigate relationships in adulthood?
Oh, that was hard. I think, especially from my grandparents, they had long-lasting relationships. And I think they kind of showed me what it is to work through problems and to be partners and, to become friends on top of just being in love. So I think I learned from my grandparents.
That's amazing to hear. And finally, what have you found led you to be most successful in relationships in adulthood?
What have I found that helps with being successful? I think it took me a long time to understand that love should feel good, that it shouldn't be painful and it shouldn't make you insecure. And once I realized that, and I realized that you've got to be friends with your partner, you can love somebody, but you also have to be friends. I think those are the things that are most important. And I believe that, at least for me, being in a good relationship means that you don't have to be anything other than yourself. Like, we can be quiet together and not speak, not because we're angry, just because we're quiet. And that's okay. And it's okay to be us.
All right. You guys heard it here first. Enjoy the little things and accept the love you deserve. Hello, my name is Emery Martinez.
Hi, I'm Steve Coppold.
And I will be interviewing Coppold for my project today. In my research, the authors argued that in accordance to Erickson's theory of psychosocial development, identity versus role confusion, it is vital to build
What is that? What is it again? Identity what?
Identity versus role confusion.
Okay.
And it is vital to build a sense of self before having a successful relationship. Do you find that to be true in yourself?
Yes. And I think that that's why kind of first relationships and early relationships kind of have issues. And I think that people get into relationships for the wrong reasons because of that. I think they stay in them for the wrong reasons because of that. And here I am, 66 years old, and I'm probably just starting to figure it out, and have a much better sense of self. And in fact, this is the first time I've been married, but the person I'm married to now is the longest lasting one because I have that better sense of self and that better sense of herself too, and being respectful of those boundaries.
Perfect. And finally, what have you found to let you be most successful in relationships in adulthood?
Say that again.
Finally, what have you found to let you be most successful in relationships in adulthood?
Insisting on time by myself and having that be okay with the other person. I think that's the hardest thing. It's just like I said earlier, I'm really independent. I like nothing better than actually being by myself, which if you're in a marriage, that can kind of flip people off a little bit. But, and again, that was something that Amy had to adjust to. But it's funny because she's retired this year, and every few weeks she tells me she's going to be gone for a week to 10 days to 3 weeks because she's doing something with her kids or grandkids. And I am just as happy as can be. It's like, oh, cool, I got all this time to myself. That's been the biggest thing. Understanding that I have to have that and having my partner accept that.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. You guys heard it here first. Take some time to yourself.